banned locally.
And what they literally do is they dump it into a blast furnace, and it burns it all up, and all they get out of it is a bunch of ash and some of the precious metals. That's all that's left. Everything else gets consumed, burnt. And that's an actual fact.
We take note of the ID numbers on the containers, and using public records, we trace where they're sent. A few weeks later, our reporting lands us here, in the port of Hong Kong. We see for ourselves how hundreds of millions of tons of our old electronics are slipped out of North America into the world's biggest shadow market for e-waste. Just a few miles from the port, hidden behind 8-foot-high corrugated walls, we see mountains of computer monitors, printer cartridges from Georgia, relics of old video arcades. In China, e-waste has become big business. We make our way to the southern Chinese city of Guiyu. It's completely built around the e-waste trade. Miles and miles and miles of nothing but old electronics. Virtually everyone we saw in Guiyu was either hauling electronics or dismantling them. Hello. How are you? Can you ask them, is it difficult work?
像这样的话也是要自己做工，光靠工人做的话就没办法做了。
Guiyu is the dirty little secret of the high-tech industry, really. Even the workers, they have no idea of the long-term impacts to their children. They don't realize what's really happening to their health. They're starting to...
Jim Puckett is an environmental activist credited with discovering this harmful e-waste route to China.
Every time I put my hand down in, I pull up another piece of computer. Unbelievable.
This video, shot in 2001, was the first anyone had documented of Western computers being dumped in Guiyu. He found tens of thousands of people working here in the toxic trade.
I'm not sure what these components are.
We invited Puckett to join us on our visit to Guiyu this year, and he says it's only gotten worse.
I was there first in 2001, and it was shocking enough then. It had gone from very bad to really horrific. And what is happening there is rather apocalyptic. Behind these chimneys are the burn stations, all retrofitted. I smell the solder here. Let's get out.
One of the most disturbing things Puckett shows us is taking place behind closed doors. Women literally cooking circuit boards to salvage the computer chips, which have trace amounts of gold. They're slowly poisoning themselves with lead fumes.
So all these old motherboards and other types of circuit boards are being cooked day in and day out, mostly by women, sitting there breathing the lead tin solders. It's just quite devastating.
We wanted to know who's making money off this hazardous work. And that brought us to downtown Hong Kong, home to hundreds of companies that import e-waste into China. No one here would speak to us on camera, so we filmed surreptitiously. Jim Puckett and I arranged to meet one e-waste broker who was willing to explain the e-waste trade from the inside.
Oh, you're hard to find. But you've never had any trouble with customs bringing it across by the trucks?
The man explains how American e-waste makes its way into China, despite laws intended to stop it.
If we were to send you our material, would our recyclers get in trouble with the Chinese government if they find their material coming into mainland?
Okay, I can only say that if they get caught, there's nothing to do with you. Because
yeah.
I buy from you, and then I sell to him. He's buying from me, he's not buying from me.
The man says since Hong Kong ships millions of containers to the U.S., and most return empty, it's cheap to load them with e-waste. and too expensive to dispose of the waste safely, no matter what recyclers claim.
Due diligence and checking how environmentally safe it is.
I can only say one thing. If you want to do it environmental, you have to pay. They have to invest in machinery, everything, labor. And it didn't worth to pay so much money.
But is it hurting the environment?
It's hurting.
It's hurting.
Actually, it's hurting. But they are limited to a certain place. And you have to think about it in this way. China is a developing country. They have to go through this process. And sometimes you have to sacrifice something in order to get something.
What we just witnessed was a typical broker. We kept asking him, but isn't it illegal to take it to China? And he said, that's not for you to worry about. He was very respectful of what he knows about Hong Kong law. He said, no, I can't take CRTs. I can't take batteries. And when I asked him, what should we do with the CRTs? He said, take them to Vietnam.
Vietnam, Malaysia, Pakistan. The list of digital dumping grounds keeps growing. But we heard that one of the biggest importers of e-waste from the West is now trying to change. So a team of my graduate students made one last trip to India. No longer just a dumping ground, India is now generating its own e-waste at an alarming rate, thanks to a growing middle class with a taste for high tech.
Last year, we sold more than 7 million PCs in India. We generated 330,000 tons of electronic waste within India. So all these are going to come back to the waste stream sooner or later. So it's a growing industry.
This state-of-the-art facility outside Bangalore has been opened up by a businessman named Rohan Gupta. He's betting on a new Indian law that could force the high-tech industry here to recycle responsibly, and maybe one day put the digital dumps out of business.
Yes, we have solutions. We could put up such plants across the world. So those are the solutions. 10 years down the line, it could be worth $1 billion industry.
He says one recycled bit at a time, the profits might really begin to add up. At this nearby plant, they're literally trying to spin the waste into gold. Refining the scrap in a safe environment and fashioning it into watches and jewelry they market as eco-friendly. Plants like this could become part of a global network of certified e-waste recyclers that Jim Puckett's group is trying to get off the ground. But even Puckett realizes it's an uphill struggle.
Even if you have a state-of-the-art facility in a country like India, the free market there will send it to the lowest common denominator, to the worst facilities, where people are sitting on the streets just picking through it by hand. It's a myth to think that you can just solve the problem immediately with technology alone.
Before leaving India, the students find some telltale signs of back-alley e-waste work. A trail of stripped circuit boards. Which brings us to this locked courtyard. Inside, the toxic trade continues.
काम करने का मन नहीं करता ऐसा बस नहीं करेंगे तो पैसा नहीं मिलेगा इसलिए करते हैं.
India may have banned these sulfuric acid baths, but it's hard to enforce. And for this 19-year-old and countless others around the world, the economics of e-waste won't be easily changed.
Do his parents know what he's doing now?
आपके मम्मी पापा को पता है कि आप यहाँ काम कर रहे हैं?
नहीं.
क्यों?
मैं बताया नहीं कि इस लाइन में काम करता हूँ. ऐसे मैं अपनी जिंदगी बर्बाद कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन मैं अपने बच्चों को थोड़ा जिंदगी बर्बाद करूँगा.